My name is John O'Brien. I'm car 12. I began work here on the Pikes Peak Highway June of 1975. And anyone in schools, teachers, and principals had to have a summer job to help take care of their family. Well, the teacher that worked here introduced me to Jack Sullivan, and Jack hired me as a patrolman. My first 2-3 decades, I worked last car, and so I would come on, the hours have changed, but I would come on like at noon, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then clear the mountain. And then most recently, in the last few years, I've worked the first or second car. And so that has changed. On the first car, you proceed directly to the summit or as far as the road is open due to weather and road conditions, and let the gate ranger know the conditions of the road and weather and whatnot, whether we're open. That was the first car. Last car was to getting everybody off the mountain safely.
Okay, my name is Rick Johnson. I was hired at Pikes Peak in 1984. When I was first hired, it was really a very small group of people. Most of them were school teachers. We were just seasonal from Memorial Day to Labor Day, basically, with just a couple of maybe 3 full-time people who in the wintertime actually drove dump trucks and helped with snow removal and things. But those early years, it was a whole group of young teachers. They were a little older than I, but had young families, and with teaching salaries back in those days, they were struggling, and this was a job that they could help supplement their income. And so for many, many years, we had picnics together. We knew wives and husbands, we knew children, and it was just a camaraderie of coming back year after year. In the beginning, it was just a small little building that was maybe 8 feet by 15 feet, 2 cash registers, one on either side. And of course, we always came in and we made our coffee, and I'm still the coffee maker around. We did have a safe, but it was underneath the counter. So we had to get on our hands and knees, move a rug that hid the safe, and open the safe underneath the counter on the floor. So getting in, getting your coffee made, getting your money out, checking messages to see if we need to make any phone calls before we open, checking with road crew or the superintendent, who usually has gone up to check the safety of the road, particularly in the wintertime. Getting our money verified and counted, getting our cash drawer set, and getting ready for the day.
So my first summer was actually June 10th, 1975, and we had a dickens of a snowstorm here. And so I've been working here ever since. After 49 years as a patrolman, and then later we referred to as rangers, there are many, many experiences that I've encountered. So I was just going off duty, and this one had the small toll gate out here. And Dwayne Shorman, he's passed away. He has a popcorn shop. He was a Cascade fire chief, and he was working at the gate, and I got a report of 4 people that were hit down by lightning in the parking lot of the new visitor center, the Crystal Visitor Center. And then I've been hit by lightning twice in my car, and took out the lights and antenna. So I've had some experiences with lightning. I had this one, the race didn't go all the way to the summit, just to Devil's Playground because of weather. And so after the practice run, I was going up to block traffic there at Devil's Playground, and there were some visitors from Japan in a private car. They were coming downhill and hit me head on at 8 Mile, at a head-on collision. I was in better shape than they were, and so I've had some experiences, yeah.
Okay. Probably the scariest ones were lightning strikes. A gentleman by the name of Rich Bazzelli, who grew up in Manitou Springs, was a professional photographer, And in his early years, he did a whole collage on Garden of the Gods, and he's got some professional photos in some of the area attractions and still is selling them. And he started doing a collage for Pikes Peak as his next project. And at one point, he and an old high school friend came up on his motorcycle. They went up to about 18 Mile Hill, and he was doing some photography dealing with weather. And there was a big anvil storm moving in up at 18 Mile Hill. And we began hearing reports of a lightning strike up in that area. And I thought, oh no, I hope that's not Rich. And sure enough, he was out taking that last photograph of a storm cloud moving in, and lightning struck him and killed him. These young men came up to the top of Pikes Peak fairly early in the day, and this young boy went out to one of the rock ledges just north of the old Summit House. And we found out later, first lightning strike of the day from a cloud bank down by Canyon City, about 40 miles away, by the way the crow flies, struck him and killed him. The other boys were brought down here, not knowing what was really going on, except they knew he'd been struck by lightning. And another lady and I sat in a conference room with those boys trying to counsel and help them get through the day. And it was several hours before the coroner came up, and then they heard over the radio that their friend had been struck by lightning and killed. And they didn't know that he had died until that point, several hours later. So it was a very long day for us, helping those young men get through that ordeal.
Another experience, one summer they were testing autonomous driven vehicles. There was, I think, some researchers from Stanford, Germany, and Audi, and worked all summer long taking GPS coordinates of the Pikes Peak Highway to drive this car without a driver in it, and had really good experience. Went off a couple of times during the trial runs, and the last day, final day, the helicopter that films was set down at Crystal. The car took off, and I was visiting with the scientists and the Audi. The car made it fine, but just below the summit, the helicopter crashed into Tank Corner. And so I've had many experiences over, 49 years. Yeah.
One of my second year here, during the race, as the race finished middle of the afternoon, the rule is it's all downhill traffic because we double lane cars coming down to expedite people leaving the race. And we had a gentleman who drove up to the toll gate at the old small toll gate and told us that God had directed him to go to the top of Pikes Peak right then. He was a bit disheveled and seemed a bit strange, and just insisted that we allow him to go to the top, to the point where he was becoming belligerent and things. And we had to get police involved because he would not take no from an answer for us, even though car after car was coming down. And he finally was talked down and did leave, but it was a pretty harrowing experience for us. We were trying our best to get him calmed down and turned around, but he just kept insisting that God wanted him at the top of Pikes Peak right then.
It was a brake check with Lynn Winters. He was car 15, and you know how people set things on top of their car, drinks and purses and whatnot. We were on brake check, and a lady had her baby in her car seat and set the car seat up on top of her car and proceeded down the mountain with the baby on top of her car. Yeah.
Was the baby okay?
Yeah, we got it stopped. And I don't know. I've had so many experiences over 49 years.
I know.
Yeah.
Big question.
Yeah.
Well, from the 80s to now, I would describe visitation as increasing exponentially. In the 80s and 90s, we could run the small toll gate with 2 cash registers and 3 or 4 people rotating through those cash registers for the entire summer. Now, and particularly since COVID and the building of the new Summit House, our numbers have increased dramatically. We now have 5 cashier booths open, plus during the heavy visitation during the summer months, we have 3 to 4 people walking the line with iPads and collecting money. So maybe 9 cashiers instead of 2 operating at the time, and we still back up traffic. There have been a couple of times in the last 5 years, I would say, that we have been backed up clear down to Highway 24 and on Highway 24. And State Patrol has called and given us a couple of ultimatums and have told us that if we don't get cars off the Highway 24, remember there's only one turn road to turn into here. And so on very, very heavy visitation days, we get a line that can be sometimes 30 to 40 minutes long. So visitation has really, really increased. We do talk a little bit more to people because of things that have changed, making sure they're safe and things, and know how to drive on the highway. But yeah, a lot busier these days than they were in the early years.
Has changed. I think the visitors have taken on more of an international flavor. We have visitors from all over the world, and so that has changed. But the interaction continues to remain positive. In fact, just this past summer, I got a call from the Summit. There was a woman and her daughter that were freaked out, panicked. They could not drive down from the Summit. Could I come up and visit with them? Well, I drove up. I radioed down to the ranger below and said, if I gave these folks a ride down, would you give me a ride back up to my patrol car? There was just this past summer. Her daughter's name was Kelly. That's my daughter's name. And so visitors oftentimes will rent cars from DIA or the airport, and they're not familiar with the transmissions, the driving, the conditions of the mountain. And so I said I would drive you down and get a ride back up. And so I got a really nice thank you letter, a ladder here, thanking me for the jokes that I told, the calmness that it made their experience. And she began her thank you letter, once in a person's lifetime you meet a real angel. And you're the angel that got me down safely.
One thing, as I train new tollgate cashiers particularly, they have to remember that even though you've answered the same question 100 times, it's the first time that your customer in front of you is asking the question. And so you just have to have patience and make sure everything you're telling them is as accurate as you can. We've had instances where people have come back down and say, well, you didn't tell me the road was closed. And when they went up, it wasn't closed and we weren't anticipating having it closed. But typically, if we have lightning or wind or heavy snow, the road can close without our knowledge until someone has gone through. And sometimes customers are not very happy with that. So just being accurate and as honest as you can in your assessment of what's going on.
And enjoy the pleasure of other people going on vacation and interacting with them and just be a good listening. I take tremendous pride. I'm proud of just contributing a little bit to the overall mission of the Pikes Peak Highway. I drive a great deal of satisfaction just doing my small part. Whether the many years of changing the dirt road to an asphalt road, building a new toll gate, Crystal Visitor Center, Summit House, working with these folks up here that are really hardworking and knowledgeable people. And I can't even change a light bulb when I see these folks here doing all the things they do. It's just mind-boggling. So I derive a great deal of pride and pleasure of working, and hopefully Kate will have me back.
Well, again, I think the camaraderie that we build with all of our seasonal help and our rangers throughout the year. And also just meeting people from around the world. You know, you just have snippets of conversation with people who are visiting from all over the world. One example I can give you is that I did a teacher exchange program in Australia in 1986. And when I hear an Australian or a New Zealand accent, I always, ask them where they're from and if they're enjoying their visit. And one time I asked some Australian people where they were from, and they said Murray Bridge, Australia, which was a little country town of about 15,000 people. And that's where I did a student teaching, and they knew who I was. I had never met them, but they knew who I was from the year that I'd been there. So such a small world, and just snippets of things from people from very different countries around the world. I really value that.
And everything. And I'm a technologically challenged senior citizen because they won't let me work at the gate because the lady said, strip down facing me. She was talking about the credit card. No, I better get going here.